She had stopped counting the steps when the rope burned too deeply into her wrists to think of numbers anymore. Dust rose with every pull, settling on her skin, her hair, her lashes, until the world looked the color of dried blood and old bones. The men behind her spoke little English and no mercy. To them she was not a woman with a name, not the daughter of a proud Apache family, not the last living voice of her mother's songs. She was payment, a solution, a problem being dragged away. When she stumbled, the rope snapped her forward. When she resisted, the horse snorted, and the man holding the reins laughed under his breath. She did not cry. Apache women did not give tears to strangers, but inside her chest, something ancient and furious beat its fists against her ribs, demanding she run, fight, die if she must, but never bend. Still, her legs kept moving, because survival was its own kind of defiance. She had heard the ranch before she saw it. Cattle lowing in the distance, the rhythmic thud of hooves against packed earth, the creak of wooden fencing in the wind. White men's land, taken land, her land once. When the buildings finally came into view, her stomach tightened. A large ranch house stood against the open sky, weathered but solid, surrounded by outbuildings and corrals. Smoke rose from a chimney, calm and steady, like the place had never known fear. She wondered how something could look so peaceful and still be the end of her life as she knew it. The men slowed their horses. One of them tugged her forward harder than necessary, as if to remind her who held the power now. She lifted her chin anyway, even as blood trickled from her cracked lip. If this rancher thought she would arrive broken, he would learn how wrong he was. The man who owned the place did not rush out. That surprised her. She had imagined shouting, laughter, maybe the sharp eyes of someone eager to inspect what had been dragged to his door. Instead, there was only silence at first. Then the screen door opened slowly. A tall man stepped out, broad-shouldered, sun-worn, his movements controlled and deliberate. He wore no hat, his dark hair tied back loosely, his face lined in a way that spoke, not of cruelty, but of years spent staring into hard, light and harder decisions. His eyes went to the men on horseback, then to her. And there, in that single moment, something unexpected happened. He did not smile. He did not leer. He did not look at her the way she had been looked at since the fighting began. His gaze held anger, but not at her. "What is this?" he asked, his voice low and rough like gravel warmed by the sun. One of the men shrugged. "You wanted workers." "She'll do." "Strong one. Apache." The rancher's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, boots crunching against the dirt, and stopped a few feet away from her. She braced herself, ready for the first blow. The first command, the first proof that all white men were the same. But none came. Instead, he looked at the rope, cutting into her wrists. Really looked. She saw his eyes narrow, not with desire, but with something close to disgust. "Untie her," he said. The men laughed, thinking it a joke. One of them shook his head. "She'll run." "She won't," the rancher replied. There was steel in his voice now. "And if she does, that's my problem." "Untie her." Reluctantly grumbling, the rope was loosened. The moment her hands were free, pain exploded up her arms, sharp and blinding. She swayed but did not fall. She rubbed her wrists slowly, eyes never leaving the man in front of her. This was new, dangerous even. Kindness could be another trap. She had seen that before. The rancher gestured toward the house, not touching her. "You're not a prisoner here," he said. "No one's going to lay a hand on you." She almost laughed. The sound rose in her throat like a scream and died there. Not a prisoner. She stood on stolen land, surrounded by strangers, with nowhere to go. But she said nothing. Apache silence could cut deeper than words. She waited, watching, measuring him the way she had been taught, by posture, by breath, by the way a man stood when he thought no one was challenging him. This one stood like someone used to standing alone. The men left quickly after that, clearly uncomfortable, eager to be gone. When the dust from their horses settled, it was just the two of them, the open land and the low sounds of cattle. The rancher exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath since she arrived. "My name is Thomas Hale," he said. "You can call me Hale." She did not answer. "That's fine," he continued, nodding once as if accepting a fair bargain. "You don't have to talk. You don't owe me anything. There's water inside. Food, too. You look like you haven't eaten." At the word food, her body betrayed her with a sharp twist of hunger. She hated it, hated the weakness. But Hale only turned toward the house and waited, giving her the choice to follow or not. After a moment she did. Each step felt like stepping into enemy territory, yet no one grabbed her. No one barked orders. Inside, the house smelled of soap, coffee and something baked recently, bread maybe. It was clean, simple, lived in. Not the den of a monster she had imagined. He set a plate on the table and stepped back. "Eat," he said, then moved to the other side of the room, deliberately giving her space. She stared at the food like it might vanish or strike her. Then she sat. Her movements were cautious, controlled. She ate slowly at first, then faster, hunger winning the battle. Hale said nothing, only watched the window, the horizon beyond it, as if guarding more than just a ranch. When she finished, she pushed the plate away and stood. "I will not be owned," she said suddenly, her English rough but clear. The words had been burning inside her since the rope fell away. Hale turned, surprised but attentive. "Good," he said. "Neither will I own you." She frowned, confusion flashing across her face before. She masked it. "Why am I here?" He hesitated. That hesitation told her more than a dozen lies ever could. "Because the world's cruel," he said finally. "And because if you were going to be dragged somewhere, I'd rather it be here than somewhere worse." That was not the answer she expected. It unsettled her more than any threat. She studied him again, seeing the tiredness in his eyes, the restraint in his hands. This man was not what she had been taught to expect, and that somehow frightened her most of all. Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the land. She realized with a quiet shock that for the first time since her capture, no one was watching her like prey. She was still afraid. She was still angry. But beneath it all, something unfamiliar stirred, uncertainty. And in that uncertainty, the first fragile thread of a truth she did not yet understand began to form. The rancher was not the bad man she thought he was. Not yet. Morning came softly to the ranch, not with shouting or violence, but with the low sound of cattle and the wind brushing against the walls. She woke on a narrow bed near the back room, fully clothed, her body tense, ready to fight. For a moment she did not know where she was. Then memory returned, the rope, the dust, the man who had cut her free instead of tightening the knot. She rose quietly and stepped outside, half expecting a gun leveled at her chest. None came. Hale was already working, mending a fence with steady hands, his back turned to her, as if trusting her not to run a knife into him or disappear into the hills. That trust felt heavy, unwelcome, dangerous. She could not understand a man who gave it so easily. When he noticed her, he only nodded and pointed toward a bucket of water. No orders, no threats. The day unfolded like that, slow, cautious, filled with space she did not know how to fill. He showed her how to gather eggs, how to keep distance from a temperamental horse, how to move through the land without fighting it. Each instruction was given once, calmly, as if he expected her to learn because she was capable, not because she was owned. She watched him when he thought she wasn't looking. There was grief in the way he moved through the house, pausing near a chair that had not been sat in for a long time, eyes lingering on an old shawl folded carefully on a shelf. This was a man shaped by loss, not cruelty. That realization unsettled her. Hatred was easier when the enemy fit the stories. At midday, a neighbor rode up, eyeing her with suspicion. Hale stepped between them without thinking, his body a shield. "She's under my roof," he said firmly. "That's all you need to know." The neighbor muttered but left. She stared after him, something tight in her chest loosening just a little. Protection given without demand was foreign to her now. As the sun sank low, she finally spoke again. "You could sell me," she said. "Men would pay." Hale's face hardened, not with temptation, but with anger. "Anyone who tries will answer to me," he replied. In that moment, she saw it clearly. This ranch was not a cage. It was a boundary he had drawn against a cruel world. She did not trust him yet. She did not forgive the land that had taken everything from her people. But as night fell, and she sat by the fire, unchained, unguarded, she allowed herself one dangerous thought. Perhaps survival did not always mean fighting. Perhaps, just perhaps, it could also mean choosing. To stay long enough to understand the man she had been dragged to, and the strange safety she had found where she least expected it.